Now, I'd like to circle back and cover the Solution Explorer in more detail. Solutions are not difficult to deal with, and in fact, they can be automatically created when you choose to create a new project. You can create a solution or project based upon a particular application or programming language. You can also choose to create a blank solution and add projects to it as required. You can manage the properties of an entire solution and some parts of its associated projects from the Solution Explorer properties. Now, when you look at the Solution Explorer, information about the entire solution and projects are presented in a hierarchical manner. The solution is the top level, and a project or many projects are subordinate to a solution. Solutions may have many properties and settings associated with them, and they're configurable by the developer. There's also a small toolbar on the Solution Explorer that will allow you to customize the content of the Solution Explorer. As I said before, you can have a single project or many projects associated with a solution. Projects can represent modules in a project, let's say all written in COBOL, or they can be different languages as you see here. Another way to think of projects is like this. Let's say you have an accounting program, and you put together a solution called accounting, and each of the major parts in the accounting system can be represented in a project. So in essence, you'd have a project for the general ledger, another for accounts payable, one for accounts receivable, and so on. We'll see more about projects as we start to move through the course. We're going to take a look at the Visual Studio IDE and all of its various components and functionality shortly. But before we do, I'd like to briefly talk about help and documentation. Like most old COBOL guys, I used to look at volumes of documentation on a regular basis. And like a good number of you, I came to regard the paper documentation like a comfortable chair, always there and always reliable. However, in this day and age, paper documentation has become somewhat obsolete. Technologies like Adobe PDF files and help files coupled with high-performance search technology have changed how we view and work with documentation. Fujitsu no longer produces paper manuals or documentation. The first reason for this is that printing and producing manuals is extremely expensive. The second and more important reason is that maintaining documentation in electronic form provides Fujitsu with the ability to quickly change and disseminate documentation as the need arises. Now, I don't want to sugarcoat anything here. It takes a sizable amount of knowledge to fully understand every facet and nuance of this technology. Frankly, to understand everything about this technology is well beyond the scope of any single book or course. From time to time, you'll need much more information on a specific topic or topics. You've heard me talk about MSDN before. MSDN provides a very comprehensive amount of documentation on many different topics. And as I said before, I recommend that you subscribe to MSDN. It's definitely worth the money. Another place to look for documentation is the book community, like Microsoft Press, O'Reilly, and the like. Now, let's move on. For .NET-COBOL for .NET, you'll find all of the documentation available via the help system. To get to the documentation, you can go to the help menu and make selections from there. Or you can go to get help from Visual Studio the way that you get help from any other Windows program, and that's by pressing F1. You can also use shortcut keys to access the help information. Now let's take a look at the help menu. How do I? It opens up a special set of documentation and introduces basic programming concepts for the specific language that you're working on. Search opens up the Help Document Explorer. Contents makes the Contents tab active in the Help Document Explorer. Index shows the Index tab in the Help Document Explorer. Help Favorites opens up the Help Document Explorer with the Help Favorites tab active. Dynamic Help is a special window that changes its contents based on what you're doing. And finally, Index Results opens up a window so that you can see the results of previous searches. Well, like many of you, I've used a number of IDEs over the years, and I can tell you that the IDE, or Interactive Development Environment, for Microsoft's Visual Studio 2005 is easily the most comprehensive and robust tool that I've ever had the pleasure of using. Visual Studio itself is highly configurable. Many third-party companies, Fujitsu included, have enrolled in a special Microsoft program called VSIP, or Visual Studio Integration Partner. Through this program, many companies have added to the functionality with special tools and products. Fujitsu's done this with the NetCOBOL for .NET compiler and with NeoKix. NeoKix is a product with a special wizard that allows a developer to take mainframe CICS BMS maps and programs and automatically convert them to an ASP.NET or Windows application. So now on with the actual demonstration. We're going to walk through the IDE tools and options, context-sensitive tools and components, toolbar shortcuts, tools and windows, Visual Studio Editor intro, configuring the editor, using the editor, find and replace, uppercase and lowercase, bookmarks, outlining, line numbers, and then of course finally the tabs. Well, here we are at the end of this lesson. We had an introduction to Visual Studio 2005, an introduction to solutions and projects, the help system, and of course the IDE and editor environment. Thanks for watching. Now let's move on to lesson 3.